Matt enjoying that warm weather. We're learning more about the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease here in the Bay State and the impacts on caregivers and patients.
Western Mass News reporter Taylor Smith is getting answers on the top stressors when dealing with dementia care.
Their capabilities become more diminished, the burden on the caregivers increases.
The Alzheimer's Association is out with a new report showing significant emotional, physical, and health-related challenges many caregivers face as a result of dealing with those suffering from Alzheimer's and other dementias. Western Mass News spoke to Jim Wessler, who is the CEO of the Alzheimer's Association's Massachusetts and New Hampshire chapter, to focus in on findings here in the Bay State.
This is not a boutique disease, with 135,000 people just here in Massachusetts, and about double that in terms of family caregivers who are each and every day taking care of someone. It's that's impacting almost 400,000 Massachusetts residents. So that's a lot.
The health impacts on caregivers is also detailed in the report. More than 20% of caregivers in the Commonwealth reported experiencing depression when caring for those with Alzheimer's, and more than 54% reported suffering from at least one chronic condition. Wessler tells us as the number of Alzheimer's cases increase, it's important for patients, their caregivers, and families to have a clear understanding on how to navigate dementia care resources, which is important to improving health outcomes.
Massachusetts has 214 geriatricians. That's it. We're a state of almost 7 million people. So we would need a 62% increase just by 2050 to meet the demand of physicians that have a specialty in geriatrics. And then on the care side, for home health aides and personal care aides, so these are people generally that would provide support in the home, we need almost a 28% increase by 2030. So that's actually right around the corner. So we have a medical staffing crisis going on.
And these numbers don't include the unpaid care provided by family caregivers and friends. According to the report, last year in Massachusetts, 213,000 dementia family caregivers provided 246 million hours of unpaid care, valuing at nearly $5.7 billion. More on the Alzheimer's Association findings and resources can be found on our website, westernmassnews.com. Just click on the blue As Seen on TV button. Reporting for Western Mass News, I'm Taylor Smith.